race fans. I am StockCar Scott, and this dog is just not lucky enough to host my little show that I like to call In the Pits. And In the Pits is brought to you thanks to the generous sponsorship of Monte Carlo Express Delivery. Monte Carlo Express Delivery, serving the courier needs of the Seattle area for the last decade. Please like us on Facebook. All right, the breaking news that I wanted to tell you yesterday, but I couldn't quite get the show together enough. As you see, I'm flying solo this time. But the breaking news from yesterday is the new NASCAR schedule is out for 2015 for the Cup, Nationwide, and Truck Series. And the best thing to see on the new schedule is that the Southern 500 at Darlington is back on its rightful weekend of Labor Day. They moved it for a little while there to the Mother's Day weekend sometime during the spring, and it just wasn't it wasn't right there. It wasn't the tradition. I mean, I know it's still the lady in black and everything, you know, no matter what weekend they run it, but tradition had it on Labor Day weekend, and I'm glad to see that they're getting back to tradition with NASCAR and running the Southern 500 when it's supposed to be run. So that's a great thing to hear. All right, racing from last week started on Wednesday. That's why I had the show on Tuesday last week. So I could watch racing on Wednesday. That didn't happen because of the rain. Bristol truck race on Wednesday night got rained out. So they had to have it on Thursday morning, about 10 o'clock their time, but of course that's 7 o'clock here on the left coast. And I had to get up a little bit earlier to get ready for work before the race came on. Got to watch about half of the race. And then I had to leave and head off to my courier job. But luckily, the place where I was going has a TV that they let me put on Fox Sports 1 and watch the racing when it's on. But the traffic was so bad Thursday morning that by the time I got to my work site, the race was down to the last 2 laps. I got to see Brad Keselowski take the white flag and then come back around one time and take the checkered flag. But it was nice to get to see Brad Keselowski get his first truck win ever. Yeah, he spent a lot of time in the Truck Series, and he went on up to the Nationwide Series and won a championship there and won a championship in the Cup Series. But he had never won a race like his daddy, Bob Keselowski, had in the Truck Series. So it was good to see him win. It was nice when I did get a chance to see the replay, to see Kyle Busch Motorsports had their misfortunes right there towards the end of the race, as Brad got a good restart, and both Darrell Wallace Jr., Bubba, was trying to catch Bad Brad along with his boss there, the Toad. The Toad got squirrely and got into the wall there and cut a tire, which basically ended his race before the checkered flag, and gave him a crummy finish. But he's not racing for points anyway. But luckily, his teammate, Bubba Wallace, was able to continue racing against Bad Brad, even though he also scraped the wall there a little bit. But Bubba was able to finish second. Boy, but I tell you, that was a hard second on him. He knew he had a good truck, chance maybe to win the race, but it just wasn't happening. It was Brad's night, Brad's day, Brad's morning to get his first win. And Bubba came in second, like I said, and Ron Hornaday, the old grizzled 5-time truck veteran, champion veteran there, came in third place, which didn't shake the points up a whole lot, with Sauter still in first, Crafton still in second, Ron Hornaday in third, and Ryan Blaney fourth in the truck points. And now his buddy, his friend, Bubba Wallace, has moved up to the 5th place in points. Okay, let me take me a quick swig here. from the old Sterling Marlin glass. Yeah. Okay. Next thing that happened there at Bristol came on Friday when they had qualifying for Nationwide and Cup Series. I think the Toad probably won the qualifying for Nationwide in his number 54 Monster Toyota. The Cup qualifying, the fastest lap was laid down by Happy Harvick. But on the outside pole was the old man, who is still enjoying his resurgence here in the summer of 2014. Jeff Gordon got himself in the number 24 car there on the outside pole, but unfortunately neither Happy nor the old man did that well during the race. I think they both finished outside the top 10. Junior didn't even do that well, not in qualifying anyway. He qualified 20th, which wasn't going to get him into the second round of qualifying, but did get him onto a front stretch pit stall, because they still have the two front and back pit stretches there at Bristol, which makes things kind of interesting sometimes. After the Cup qualifying, they were supposed to have the Nationwide race, and they got through the opening ceremonies and the opening the pre-race and all that sort of stuff, and then the rain just came down in a deluge for a couple of minutes. I don't think it lasted more than 10-15 minutes at the most, but it wet down the track really well, and so they had to dry it off. One of the nice things about Bristol is because it's concrete and because it's got so much banking in it, the water just seems to run off of it real well. And with this new system that NASCAR has with the air titans that blow the water off the track instead of actually drying the water off of the track, it worked really quickly. In fact, they were able to get the track dry and ready to race again in about an hour, maybe a little bit less. But the strange thing was the sound of the air titans inside of Bristol, which we all know is the last Coliseum, the last great Coliseum. Well, as these air titans would go by, it sounded like, I don't know if you remember it, about 5-6 years ago, whenever the World Cup was in Africa, and everybody had those horns, the vuvuzelas as they're called, and everybody was blowing them at the same time. They made that humming noise. Well, that's what the air titans sounded like there in the confines of Bristol. It was kind of funny sounding, but because of them, got the track dry. They were able to get in the entire 300-lap race, even though rain was threatening later that evening. And, you know, with 300 laps at Bristol, there was lots of wrecking. There was lots of racing, but lots of wrecking too. One of the most controversial wrecks, was when Brian Blaney, Dave Blaney's son, who was racing in the Nationwide race in the number 22 Penske Discount Tires Mustang, even though he's not getting points there in the Nationwide series, he's still racing for that seat time and experience. But unfortunately, another non-Nationwide driver, that of Kyle Larson, was also running in that race, and Blaney got into him pretty bad there towards the second half of the race, and spun him out and just tore up Kyle's car, just took him out of the race. And immediately Ryan was on the radio to his spotter, you know, tell him that was not what that was supposed to happen. That was not on purpose or anything like that. And Kyle was good during his interview. Kyle Larson took it with the old proverbial grain of salt, and he said, you know, it looked to be a racing thing and all that. So the race did go on. A lot of the race was led by the Toad there, Kyle Busch, in his 54 Monster car. He dominated a lot like he had the day before in the truck race. but also the way in the truck race, he just was not going to win. On the last restart, Blaney was there on his inside. The outside seemed to be the faster lane, so Kyle lined up there. But during the restart, when they got to the restart box, Kyle didn't go, and Ryan did, and Ryan took off and was able to lead the rest of the race for the win. And we found out later that the reason why Kyle didn't get going was because the fourth place car was all up in his back end, getting his back tires up off the ground. You might say backed him up, jacked him up, and backed him up, kind of like Giles Thornton did to Brandon McReynolds a couple of weeks ago at the K&N race up here at Evergreen. So the Toad was all mad about that after the race, and of course Ryan Blaney won the race because of that move, and credit to him. Becoming a big fan of his, because the first thing he did when he got out of the car wasn't thank his sponsors, wasn't anything else. First thing he did was apologize to Kyle Larson for ruining his chance at winning the race. So I got a lot of respect for this kid. He's coming up right. Dave Blaney has taught him a lot of the finer points of racing. So I look to see good things out of him, see him around for a long time. Of course, we're going to see him in Cup next year already. He has already got him a deal with the Wood Brothers, number 21 Ford, where he's going to run their limited part-time schedule. They don't run a full schedule. They haven't for many, many years. But they do run a part-time schedule, and they're going to have him in the car the same way that they had Trevor Bain in the car a couple of years ago. And if you remember, when Trevor got his chance there in the Wood Brothers car, he won a Daytona 500. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen with Ryan Blaney, but the boys got a lot of talent, and they do put together some good cars there with the Wood Brothers. Clean up last few things about the nationwide race. Toad came in second. Third place was Chase Elliott, the highest placing nationwide driver. First in points, still first in points. Fourth place was Ty Dillon. Fifth place was Regan Smith. And they got into a little exchange of words after the race because Reagan didn't think that Ty raced him the right way or something like that. They had exchanged a few words there, but they're both were battling for a top 5 finishing place. And as we found out after the race, they are both now in the top 3 in points, because Elliott Sadler in the number 11 Toyota had a terrible night. Got into a couple of crashes, had a horrible finish, and so Ty was able to move past him with his 4th place finish, and now Ty is 3rd in the points, right behind Regan Smith, who is 2nd in points. So Regan Smith is just going to have to get used to all these young kids racing around him, especially the good ones like Chase Elliott and Ty Dillon that are winning also. Okay. Finish up the points there. Elliott Sadler dropped down to 4th in points, and Brian Scott in the number 2 RCR Camaro, no relation to StockCar Scott, is still in 5th place in points in the Nationwide Series. Okay, that brings us up to Saturday. And the Irwin Tools night race at Bristol, one of the big tickets of the season. Each season when they race there is one of the best races of the year. My wife's been there. My oldest brother and my youngest brother have both been there. They tell me there's some great racing, and I watch it every year that I can on TV, because it is one of the best races of the year. 500 laps flat out on a half-mile high bank track. Yeah, it's Bristol, baby. And of course, lots of wrecking. One of the early wrecks I forget who brought out the first caution, but the first caution unfortunately brought out the first 2 speeding penalties as they were going down pit row. Both Kyle Busch and Jimmy Johnson both got speeding penalties, which put them back at the back of the pack. Didn't seem to be much of a thing for Johnson, but for the Toad, it ended up being the undoing of his evening, because a little bit later, the 55 of Brian Vickers got into the 43 of Eric Almirola and wrecked both of them. But there's a curious thing that always happens at Bristol. It's never just 2 cars that wreck. They always 2 cars wreck, and then they get another 3 or 4 cars mixed up in it also. I mean, that's just the way it goes at Bristol. And when Almirola and Vickers got into each other and wrecked, who did they spin around and take out? The Toad. They got Kyle Busch, tore up his car. He spent some time in the pits there trying to get things worked out. I do believe he got back out on the track for a while, but from what I heard Monday, he was having quite the words with his crew chief. They were fighting back and forth as they were trying to get the car running better, and finally, I do believe the crew chief there, Dave Rogers is his name, brought Kyle in and basically parked him. And they didn't have to be out there. They were going to get a bad finish anyway, and they are already have a win, so they've punched their ticket into the chase, as they like to say. So it wasn't that big of a deal. But those wrecks, like I say, usually it's 2 cars that start it and a 3rd car that gets caught up in it. Well, a little bit later in the race, I think it wasn't like 110, 120 laps into the race, Kevin Harvick, my second favorite driver, at least for now, just didn't quite negotiate a turn there quite well behind Denny Hamlin in the number 11, and came back up and smacked him right in the rear quarter panel, sent him spinning. Did a little bit of damage to Kevin, but not enough to slow him down. I think he finished maybe 11th for the evening. But Denny's Hamlin's night was over. He went spinning, crashed into the inside wall, and that threw him back up into the track. And who should he hit? Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the number 88 Diet Mountain Dew Chevrolet SS. He came across and caught him right about here and just ripped the whole side of his car off. I mean, it took every piece of sheet metal off the side of his car, and that foam inside of it went spewing everywhere. So Junior had to go into the pits for most of the rest of the night. They did get the car fixed well enough to get out on the track a little bit, but I don't think it made minimum speed with its masking tape, duct tape number 88 on the side of it. No, it wasn't making speed, so Junior finished like 39th for the evening, which unfortunately was worse than the Toad, who I think finished 36th, I do believe. But anyway, that's what happens at Bristol. And of course, Jimmy gets him another speeding penalty along the way, and has to start at the back of the pack again. But he worked his way up towards the front. Towards the end of the race was being led by Matt Kenseth in that number $20 General Toyota. And everybody was talking, well, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the night that Matt finally gets his first win of the season, punches his ticket into the chase, even though he's got enough points in a good enough spot where he'll make it into the chase. After such an amazing season last year with his 6 or 7 wins that he had, everybody's having a hard time believing that he has not won a race yet. Well, even though he led on the last restart, he still hasn't won a race, folks, because the number 22 Shell Ford, Penske Ford there, driven by Joey Logano, got around him there towards the last part of the race, and eventually Joker Logano won the Bristol night race. And of course, during that last part of the race, his teammate Brad Keselowski came up and challenged him, was able to get around Matt, leaving Matt third. And Brad did give Joker a couple of really good challenges, but because it was his teammate, I'm sure the captain would Roger Penske wouldn't have been happy at all if Brad had wrecked both of them there on the last couple of laps. So he let the Joker win, and now they both have 3 wins, at least 3 wins going into the chase. Like I said, Matt finished third. Jimmy Johnson came back from 2 pit road speeding penalties and finished 4th. And then Kurt Busch rounded out the top 5 with his top 5 finish there. Now, you know, I used to hate Kurt Busch, but now I just wish he was an only child. My wife's favorite, Greg Biffle, in the number 16, he finished 10th, and which was a good finish for him for Bristol, and still keeps him in the running for the chase playoff scenario. He does better at tracks like Atlanta coming up this weekend, and he's also had some good finishes at Richmond. So, of course, we're all hoping he's going to make it into the chase. Jokers, and you may wonder why I call Joey Logano Joker Logano. It just fits him, folks. Look at the boy. And then look at the Joker in the Batman comics or in the Batman movies. And then look at Joey Logano, and he looks like the Joker without the white face on. So anyway, the Joker, Joey Logano's win gives him 3 wins, just like his teammate Brad, also like Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Jimmy Johnson. All have 3 wins, so they'll be at the top of the heap when it comes to chase time. Only 2 more races to the chase. That's Atlanta this weekend and Richmond the next weekend. Okay. Also Saturday night, I didn't go out and see any local racing, but I did happen to watch some local racing online. Yeah, I watched late models and mini stocks and vintage modifieds out at Evergreen Speedway, and I did that on www.fanchoice.tv. You go to that website, and they've got 3 camera angles, and they've got the audio from the track, so you get to hear the track announcer, and they also have leaderboards, so you get to see all the cars, all the car numbers, all the drivers, their best speeds, how many laps they've run, how many laps behind they are. It's a really nice setup. It's just the 3 camera angles they got are only, they're okay camera angles. One of the camera angles is down the front stretch, so you can see the start-finish line. One of the camera angles you can see turns 1 and 2 with the 3/8 real well, and then the other camera angle sort of gives you an overview of the interior track where they run the figure eights, and they had a figure 8 race there that night, and you can see that pretty well, but you can't see anything of turns 3 and 4 of either the 3/8 mile track or the 5/8 mile track. But it's free, you know, it's free. So I tuned in there to www.fanchoice.tv, and the first race that I like I said, there was a figure 8 race, but the first race that I watched was the mini stock race, and it was really nice because I actually knew who a couple of the drivers were, a couple of Facebook friends of mine. One of the drivers I saw win just a couple of weeks ago down at South Sound in the Outlaw Compacts division, touring division, and because they run the same rules package as the Evergreen mini stocks, then he runs in that also, and that's the number 97 Racers Against Child Abuse Volkswagen of Nat Barber. It was really good to see him run out there. He ran real well. Led the first 20 laps of the 30-lap main, but then he got passed on lap 20 by young Trenton Moriarty in his number 24. I don't know what kind of car that is, that orange car. You'll have to tell me what that is there, Trenton. But he took the lead, and he brought along the number 65, Bobby DeYoung, along with him. And Nat then started to drop back into the pack, which was a pretty good field that night. They had 13 cars out there running in their mini stock class, and it was a pretty good field. Of course, the race went on, and Trent Moriarty was able to hold off Bobby DeYoung. Now, there was a big caution towards the end that caused a big cleanup there on the front stretch, but once they got going again, Trenton was able to hold off DeYoung for his win, and I do believe the last spot on the podium was the number two of Michael Fritz. So congratulations goes out to Facebook friend there, Trenton Moriarty. Way to go on your big mini stock win. Okay, the next race up was the Vintage Modifieds. And the Vintage Modifieds are kind of like what they sound like. They look like Modifieds, but they're real old cars. They look like Modifieds from like 50 years ago or so, because they've got bodies from the 30s and 40s. Full-size bodies from the 30s and 40s of old Chevys and Fords and Dodges and such. And it's quite interesting to watch them. I've seen them down at South Sound on quite a few occasions, and usually they show up with a field of about 7, 8, 9 cars, and put on a pretty nice little race there. They had a 30-lap main, and that main was won by the number 05 of Jim Palmer, and it sounded like it was a real exciting ending. There was lots of something thrilling happening going on, but of course that was outside the view of the cameras there, so I just got to see him cross the finish line with the checker flag waving over Jim Palmer's head. But still, it's free, it's online, I don't care. The last race of the evening was the late model 125 lap race on the 3/8 mile, which was a really good race. Now, I thought there was supposed to be another race on the schedule. They said that early this year, they said that the West Coast Street Stocks were supposed to have a race that same night, and then later on, it wasn't West Coast Street Stocks, it was something called Northwest Street Stocks, and then I guess they just dropped it all together and added some extra laps for the late model race, which was a good race. I just was hoping to see some street stocks. The late models had a 15 car field, pretty good strong car count, and one of the nicest things about it was Molly Helmet, one of my favorite drivers out there at Evergreen, was able to start her number 90 Frontier Communications car up on the front row. She had a pretty good qualifying time, and with the invert, she was able to start on the outside of the front row. And she ran well there for the first dozen laps or so, but unfortunately, there was a wreck. Something happened over in turn 4 that I could not see, but I did see her come into the camera shot that I could see on the front stretch, all beat up and wrecked, and it just didn't look like it was going to be Molly's night. I saw on Facebook her dad sent out a post that she was okay, but not so much for her Frontier Communications number 90. From what I understand, something I read just recently on Facebook, that car is pretty much tore up for the season, but they do have their backup car in a position where they can get it ready for the next late model race there at Evergreen. So way to go, Molly, way to go, Helmet Racing, to keep her out on the track. Another dozen laps, another caution, and this one involved the winner from the previous week on the 5/8, the big 100 lap late model race that they have along with the K&N race. Number 32, Mike Holden, unfortunately was involved somehow in this second caution. I didn't see how though, and I just watched him drop on the leaderboard until I figured out that he must have been involved and put out of the race on that caution, which was unfortunate because he has a really good running car and he's got lots of wins under his belt this season. But it was not to be his night. The guy who was running probably the best out there that night was the number 65 Seattle suntanning there of Tyler Tanner, and he led a whole bunch of the race. In second, trailing him for a lot of it, was the number 39 of Shane Harding, and third place for most of the night was the number 20 of Andy Soul, and he told me a couple of weeks ago that that's a brand new car that he's put together, so it was running really, really well. About lap 70 there was another caution, and then after the cleanup and the restart, Andy was able to push that new car around Shane Harding for a little while, but Shane was able to eventually get back around him. Neither one of them was able to get up to give a good strong challenge to young Tyler Tanner, so that's the way it ended, with Tyler winning the race, Harding coming in second, and Andy Soul in that new car finishing third. And it looked like they had a good time there after the race when they were giving out the trophies. Way to go, Andy, on your third place finish there. Nice to have a trophy on that mantle. And congratulations to my other Facebook friend there, Tyler Tanner. Way to go on that late model win. All right. And it looked like it was a lot of fun. Got to watch it for free on www.fanchoice.tv. Okay. Okay, next up, early Sunday morning was the F1 race at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium, the Belgium Grand Prix. On the pole for that was the two Mercedes cars on the front row, with Nico Rosberg in first and Lewis Hamilton in second. Sebastian Vettel, four-time champion, was third as they started the race, and the first two laps were quite interesting. They got off to a nice clean start, and Lewis actually got off to a really good start and led most of the first led the first lap, led a lot of the second lap. Sebastian Vettel actually got around Nico Rosberg for a little bit and challenged Lewis Hamilton for the lead there at the beginning of the second lap. Nico Rosberg got around him and around Vettel, and then up to Lewis Hamilton, and then the controversy of the race happened. We don't know if it was on purpose, but it sure did work out in Nico Rosberg's favor when he turned into his teammate's left rear tire and cut it with his wing. Now, it chunked off a piece of Rosberg's wing, but that was easy enough to fix. But Lewis Hamilton's tire went flat, and it scraped up all the underneath of his car, which is very aerodynamically sensitive, and he ended up running so poorly that they retired him from the race. Of course, Nico Rosberg got his wing changed and went on to finish second in the race. Now, if he had designed it, he couldn't have designed it any better. And even if he had planned to just take both of them out of the race, where Lewis would have less races to catch him in the points, then that worked with gravy on top of it. Because with Nico finishing second, Lewis, in the last 6 or 7 races they have, he's not really going to have a chance to catch Nico, even though he's second in points, unless Rosberg has a retirement, a couple of retirements. So things don't look good for my favorite driver, Lewis Hamilton. He was really dejected after the race. I mean, it was a hard thing to watch, and I just hope that the rumors that Nico did it on purpose are not true. Oh, by the way, there was a winner. Young Daniel Ricciardo of Australia won his third Grand Prix this season, and he is really having quite the career season there in his Red Bull. Not so much for his teammate Sebastian Vettel though. Third there on the podium with Nico Rosberg and Daniel Ricciardo was Valtteri Bottas in the Williams Mercedes. Their next race is the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, and that is on September 7th. Okay, there was also another race on Sunday, actually a couple of races, but the one that I watched was the ARCA stock car race at Madison, Wisconsin, the Madison Mile there at Oregon, Wisconsin. That's an odd name, but that's where it's at. One of my Facebook friends, I want to give a shout out to Michael Thornton. He was at the race, and between watching the race on CBS Sportsnet and having Thorny there post some pictures on Facebook, it was almost like being there, especially that really nice burnout that you posted right there at the end there, Thorny. Thanks a lot. That was really a nice afternoon. There were 28 cars in the ARCA field, and that was set by points because they had a rain out of the qualifying. So that put Mason Mitchell on the pole and Grant Enfinger, my favorite ARCA driver this year, on the outside. Third place in points, Frank Kimmel started third. And as they got going, Grant Enfinger got a great start and was able to get out in front and lead most of the race. I think he led over 100 laps. He led the most laps of the race. But come lap 70, he had rear end gear problems that put him out of the race. Now, fortunately, there had been so many cars that had retired already that his finishing place was 15th. And it looked like this was going to be a chance for Mason Mitchell to really widen his points lead over Grant Enfinger. But within another dozen laps, Mason Mitchell had battery problems that put him out of the race, and he finished 14th. So the only one that was able to really have a good points day was Frank Kimmel, who finished 4th and was able to shrink his points deficit to the two leaders there, Enfinger and Mitchell. Oh yeah, the winner of the race there, of the 200 lap race in Madison, at the Madison Mile, was Justin Boston in the number 25 Venturini Motorsports Zaloop Toyota. Okay, next up for the ARCA guys is a race that I don't think is going to be shown on TV, even though I've seen them before on TV on the old Speed Channel. The 100 lap race at the Duquesne Mile in Illinois. It's great dirt race. Great again seeing full-size stock cars running out on the dirt. It's really something to see. If they showed it on TV, but they don't, so we'll be watching it on the computer. The other race that Sunday afternoon was the Indy League race at Sonoma, and I had other things to do. I guess it was interesting with the earthquake having been there and everything, but later I saw that Scott Dixon had won the race. Ryan Hunter-Ray was second, and Simon Pagenaud was third. Their next race is their last race this coming weekend, Saturday night, I think, maybe it's Sunday, at the Southern California track. They've got a 500-mile race, and it's double points, and it's their last race of the season. Well, their season ends kind of early. Okay, but I'm not going to be watching that or the Atlanta races because I'm going to be down at South Sound this weekend for 2 days of really great racing. It's the weekend of the Dennis Smitham Memorial 100 street stock race, and it's every year that I've seen it, it's been a great race. It's wonderful racing every year. And Saturday night, they're going to start off with qualifying the street stocks in a couple of qualifying races for the next night. Also a mini stock race, and also a 100-lap late model race that I heard maybe Parker Stevens will be there, so it'll be great to see him race again. And then Saturday night will be the Dennis Smitham Memorial 100-lap race, and another mini stock race. And also I think there's another couple of divisions there, Bumblebees, Hobby Stock, somebody. But it's going to be a great weekend racing. It always is. 2 days down at South Sound on Labor Day weekend. It's always fun. That's where I'll be hanging out. The racing on TV is going to be in Atlanta, nationwide on Saturday, and then Sunday night is the Atlanta 500 Cup race, and we'll be looking for good things out of Greg Biffle on that one. Early in the day is the truck race at Canada, but I will probably not be watching that one. I'll probably be watching Roll Tide, Alabama playing against West Virginia, and the reason I'll be watching that is because my brother is going to come up here to visit me. Yep, and we'll watch the Alabama Crimson Tide first because he's a crazy Alabama fanatic, Roll Tide, and then we'll be off to the races there at South Sound. So join me racing at South Sound this weekend. I'll have my brother with me, and maybe next week I'll even talk him into being on the show. That'd make him my very first invited guest. I can hardly wait. But until then, keep watching my videos there on YouTube. I really appreciate seeing the view numbers go up. And I'll get this posted as quickly as I can. See y'all at the races this weekend. Thanks a lot, race fans. That's it for this week.